Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV. We took a week off last week, but we're back like a bad debt, and we got some great stories, a lot of things happening. The registered guard, really a lot of stuff going on with marijuana, especially with dispensaries and all. I'm going to do a quick announcements here. The third initiative that we've been talking about is out and on the streets. It's Initiative 53. That was one of the two initiatives that the New Approach Oregon came up with. They filed two. The other one was challenged. It's still hung up in courts, so they decided to just go ahead with the second one, which is Initiative 53. And it reads, allows possession, manufacture, sale of marijuana by to adults subject to state licensing regulation, taxation. So it's out. We have the signature sheets now. Just got them today. And if you want to send us some email to dankbagman@hotmail.com, I can send you the information or tell you how to get going on that. So we've got 3 initiatives to gather signatures for, and about 3 months. I meant to write it down and forgotten, but it's 3 months and something days, few days, that we got until we got to turn in the signatures. And so we're running out of time, and we got 3 initiatives, and they all need signatures badly. So, but it's doable, especially if we get the big money coming in that we've been promised to. The outlook looks really good. The polls are as high as 58% of registered voters saying that they would sign a legalization initiative. I've been saying for a long time now that we need to get it on the ballot, and it'll pass. All we got to do is get it on the ballot. Victory is ours to lose in 2014. I'm telling you. So we've got to get it on the ballot, but we've got to get the signatures. So if one of these initiatives, if you something about it, you heard about it, or something you read in it you don't like, sign it anyway. Get it on the ballot. Let other people vote on it. Just one thing shouldn't kill the whole idea. We got to get this legalization going. We have friends, family that are in jail, lost property over the drug prohibition, marijuana prohibition, but. So we got to end it. So anyway, that's what, and by initiative, it's the only way it's going to happen. The legislatures proved that they will not do it. The last session, they had a chance, they blew it. I predicted they would.
They care too much about their own agenda and not what the public actually wants, which is what they're supposed to be voting.
That's right. So we have 3 chances to get it on the ballot, but we got short on time, so we need to pitch in, and it's time to get going. So anyway, I want to the other thing we want to talk about is the medical marijuana dispensary ban. The Oregon legislature did it to the medical marijuana patients of Oregon once again by imposing a dispensary ban where cities and counties can instigate I think it's up to a 14-month ban, as it turns out. So anyway, we're fighting cities.
So I thought the maximum was a year.
It is a year, but something about timing, I've forgotten what it is, but it actually means 14 months. I read somewhere. I can't remember the details. But so far, Springfield had a meeting. There was no testimony taken, but I went to that one. In fact, that's where I was last week instead of being here. Interesting meeting. We have a couple of counselors that are on the fence, but there's a couple that are very strongly opposed to any ban, and I wanted to speak on that briefly. I believe his name was Ralston. Councilor Ralston spoke out and said that he was definitely against any. He said medical marijuana is a medicine for people, and there shouldn't be any moratorium. He was flat against it. And then the mayor spoke. He got quite upset, actually, not upset, but emotional. She has a friend that's suffering from cancer and knows what it's like, or the ravages it can cause. And so she's against any kind of moratorium also. So there's 2 right out of the gate. But anyway, the reason I'm telling you all this is because, let me give you a quick rundown. I'm going to run this over to the end of the show, too, because this is how important it is. Lane County, April 1st, Tuesday, April 1st. Now, this is going to be over by the time you watch this, so we'll tell you how it went. But the next one coming up that you can do something about is April 7th. It's Springfield City Council. It's April 7th at 7 p.m. That's 7-7, not hard to remember. Public testimony accepted. 2 of the counselors, or 3 of them, said they were actually looking forward to receiving public testimony. And they're saying, and they mean pros and cons, because they want to hear both sides of it. But We need to get people down there that to explain to these counselors what medical marijuana means to the patients and access, and what access or lack of access can mean to a patient. So we need help with that. So that's Springfield again, City Council, 7 o'clock, April 7th. And again on April 7th, I don't know the time on this one, but in Cresswell, you could call and probably find out. But Cresswell is April 7th. They're going to have a discussion. City Council will. The City Council at Coburg on April 8th is going to have the discussion. So, and then Cottage Grove is going to have a discussion on April 14th. So, contact us here, dankbagman @hotmail.com, and if you want some more information on that, we've got to get people there. So, please, people, get off the couch and let's get moving. So, anyway, we've got to get into some of our stories here. The first thing is Jeremy's going to read us the Register Guard letter to the editor.
Moratoriums are ill-formed. It is sad that many communities in Oregon are passing moratoriums on medical marijuana dispensaries. On March 16th, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, a well-known neurosurgeon, and presented 2 documentaries on the subject on CNN. It is truly amazing what research is doing on the drug. There is a Colorado company that has developed a marijuana plant that has no THC, a compound that causes people to get high, and contains medical properties that help control interactable seizures in children as well as arthritis pain. And there are also companies throughout the world that are marketing the drug for other benefits and even cures. It is proving to be the miracle drug of our time. I suggest that the elected representatives of the cities and states that ban the use of medical marijuana see the documentary Weed 2 by Sanjay Gupta. They may need medical marijuana themselves someday. Joanne and Legio Florence.
Yeah, it's a great letter to the editor, and I appreciate that lady sending that letter in. That's what we need to do, is communicate and send in letter to the editors, answer editorials that you see in the paper, because we consider that in the movement as free advertising. And I need to look that up. I've seen some figures on that, of how much they consider a letter to the editor is actual worth in free advertising that we're getting for our cause. It's very, very effective. I've had really good luck in having my letters published in Register Guard, so it's not a hard thing to do. Just a little bit of thought into it, and it's very fulfilling. So what we want to talk about next is, this was in the Curry Pilot newspaper, currypilot.com, No Pot Moratorium in Curry County, written by Jane Stebbins. Curry County Commissioners decided Wednesday not to impose a moratorium on medical marijuana dispensaries, noting that delaying the opening of such facilities would not benefit anyone. Statewide, 8 licenses have been granted out of 288 applicants since March 3rd. 22 others have been granted provisional licenses. The remaining 20 were denied based on incomplete applications or their proposed locations being within 1,000 feet of a school. Other applicants, including one proposed in Brookings, are still awaiting word from the state. Yet some counties and cities are taking advantage of a new law that allows them to place a moratorium on dispensary openings to allow them more time to enact regulations specific to their local needs. They have until March 1st to impose a moratorium and must lift it by May 1st, 2015. Last week, Port Orford held a first reading of a resolution putting in place a moratorium. Gold Beach and Brookings officials plan to abide by state guidelines. I'm not in favor of a moratorium, but what I'd like is some sort of standards, similar to liquor stores or bars, said Commissioner David Brock Smith at a commissioner work session Wednesday. I don't want to do anything to inhibit folks getting the relief they would need. Commissioner Dave Itzen initially said he favored placing a moratorium on dispensaries to allow the county enough time to craft regulations, but it was pointed out that local regulations and they are to be enacted, if they are to be enacted at all, are not subject to any deadline. About 15 citizens opposed to a moratorium showed up to explain why one isn't needed. We're a unique community that makes in that patients are locked into this corner of the state, said Jim Carr, a medical marijuana proponent. A moratorium only does one thing: hurts patients. That's a good line. That's a great line.
Yeah, that
wow.
is.
The best thing you can do is watch us and see what we're doing, and if it creates a problem. You can see what it's doing for the county, whether it's negative or positive. I don't see any negatives in trying to help sick people. He noted that the national awareness around legalizing marijuana, even for medical use, has gotten law enforcement engaged in a medical issue. Legalizing, Carr said, will reduce demand on the black market. Smith said he was concerned about how some marijuana products are being sold in packaging almost identical to existing products, including cereals, candy bars, and numerous other edible items. It's the state's job to do the testing, the packaging, see how the state is set up, see how the place is set up and operating, said Commissioner Susan Brown. It's our job to see how it fits into our county and make it safe for our citizens and the facility. Marilyn Clark, who was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1983, began a medical marijuana regime and has been cancer-free for 31 years, and said the existence of the facilities is more about safety. Our patients, our community, our friends need to have safe access, so you don't have to go to the black market, she said. I think it's cruel to deny us. Desmond and Robinson, who hopes to open a medical marijuana facility, said state rules are numerous and strict, and proponents are more than willing to abide by them than risk having the state shut down the dispensary altogether. State regulations run the gamut and address background checks, a store's location from schools, extensive alarms, and other security systems, marijuana testing, record keeping, merchandise transfers between a facility and patient, labeling, inspections, and violations. We're that close, Robinson said, putting his thumb and forefinger ever so close together. We've spent thousands of dollars. It's not easy opening a new business. If you deny us, that's more money out the door. So that's how it looks from their side, and trying to get these dispensaries going. And it's interesting. Some of the cities are not having a problem. Others, it's a big problem. But again, we want to be sure and remind everybody that we need to get together. And in Springfield, April 7th. Cresswell is on April 7th. Coburg is on April 8th. Cottage Grove is April 14th. So if you're in those cities, have family in those cities, friends in those cities, get something organized. Find out from the city council what time it is, and go down there and tell them, please, do not deny patients their medicine. Crime will not go up if they have a dispensary. In fact, Los Angeles showed that when Los Angeles outlawed the dispensaries that were open, crime went up when the dispensaries were closed, and they went down when the dispensaries were open, and that's a fact that can be looked up. We'll see you next segment.
Do you suffer from fear of losing your election? Are you terrified that voters will discover you've done nothing to improve their lives? Maybe it's time you talk to your spin doctor about Incarcerex. In clinical trials, Incarcerex has been shown effective at reducing election-related anxieties by making voters think you're doing something about the drug problem. It's simplistic and fast-acting. If your problems continue or get worse, you can always double or triple your dose of Incarcerex. Whether it's addiction, therapeutic use, or just casual use, there's an Incarcerex plan for every American. Best of all, taxpayers, not you, will foot the bill. So talk to your spin doctor about Incarcerex today. Common side effects include loss of civil liberties, police corruption, racial injustice, increased terrorism, spread of HIV and AIDS, and violent crime. Bloated prisons are also a common side effect. Stop taking Incarcerex if bloating lasts longer than 20 years. If you're trying to balance the budget, keep families together, or protect human rights, Incarcerex may not be right for you. Do not mix Incarcerex with the Constitution or common sense. So start taking Incarcerex and keep pretending you're doing something about the drug problem.
We're back with segment. You got DanK and we got my friend Jeremy that came in, and we're working together, getting the news stories out to you. We're talking about moratoriums for dispensaries in the state of Oregon. The Oregon legislature in 2014, in my opinion, did nasty to the Oregon medical marijuana patients again. Last time they doubled their fee when they were already making money, and then doubled the fee just to make more money for the budget, so they're making money off the medical marijuana patients.
And they added a $50 gross site registration fee, which isn't necessary at all. They just did it again to make more money.
So anyway, so the latest thing is they created this ability for cities and counties to create a dispensary ban. So we've been talking a little bit about how that process is going, and we have a story here from the Register Guard dated March 25th. The cities grapple with a ban on pot shops. Veneta rejects a moratorium on medical marijuana dispensaries, while Springfield sets a public hearing. This is what I spoke to in the last segment briefly. That was the hearing I went to in Springfield. This is written by Christian Hill and Sean Hubbard of the Register Guard. In Springfield, the city council on Monday night was divided on whether to approve a temporary moratorium on registered retailers to sell medical marijuana, ultimately deciding to hold a public hearing on the issue next month. 17 miles to the west, meanwhile, the Veneta City Council at the same hour rejected a possible moratorium on such dispensaries in a 3-2 vote that followed a long debate. The actions by the two committees came as a May 1 deadline looms for cities around Oregon to impose a temporary moratorium on dispensaries that state lawmakers allow during the recently concluded legislative session. The temporary moratorium, if approved, would expire in May 1st, 2015, although cities could adopt shorter ones. See, that was where the 14 months came up instead of a year, because the moratorium could last up to a year, but they actually don't...
Oh yeah, the deadline is May 1st, so they could have imposed one before that.
Right, exactly. Cities and counties have been all over the map on this issue. The Florence City Council last week unanimously approved a moratorium within its city limits. Lane County Commissioners also discussed the issue last week without taking any definitive action on whether to temporarily ban the dispensaries in unincorporated regions of the county. The Eugene City Council has not scheduled any action on the issue.
So unincorporated means any parts of Lane County that's not a city?
Yeah, I think, apparently. Like the
so
small,
where is someone going to have one outside of a city anyway?
Well, I think they're probably thinking of small places that are like spots in the road with a store and, small communities, as opposed to towns with a city council and all that, I assume. In Veneta, let's see, wait a minute. Oh, and moratorium isn't the only option before Oregon cities. State lawmakers also gave cities the ability to regulate the location and operating hours of registered dispensaries if they so choose. In Veneta, Mayor Sandra Larson joined with Councilors Thomas Cotter and Thomas Lang on Monday in voting down the temporary ban. So far, the city has had only one individual, Elmira real estate broker Jeff Shankter, interested in opening a dispensary within its limits at the West Lane Shopping Center off Highway 126. City officials initially expressed concerns about dispensaries locating near parks, the library, or a skate park. But Scheckter's proposed location isn't near any of those spots. Larson said she finally concluded that the city could not adopt better rules for dispensaries than those already put in place by the state, with the possible exception of some location concerns. Carter said that the city should focus in enacting rules only as actual issues rise. I understand the trepidation, but I don't believe when you're legislating things, you should operate based on what ifs and unknowns, he said. Councilor Brittany Booth said she didn't see the harm in adopting a moratorium, which she argued could be lifted as soon as the council looks into the issue more deeply and potentially adopts local rules.
Well, the harm in it is that it would hurt all of the patients that have to go somewhere else to get their medicine.
Exactly. Yes, that is the thing that they aren't paying attention to. Is the patient here, and that should be the main focus.
That was the whole point in legalizing dispensaries in the state of Oregon in the first place.
Exactly.
Not for them to do all these moratoriums.
Yep. If approved by the state for a dispensary license, he said he hopes to be up and running in less than a month. So he said he would keep working with the city about any issues that arise. I mean, what's the alternative, he said. In Springfield, opinions fell on both sides of the issue. Mayor Christine Lundberg and Councilor Dave Ralston said they oppose a moratorium. Lundberg became emotional as she told the council how a close friend is dying of colon cancer. She said after the meeting that her friend isn't using medical marijuana, but she sees dispensaries as a way for other patients to obtain marijuana who find growing it or using a grower cumbersome. She also said people can already buy marijuana whether dispensaries are open or not. We just have to be realistic, she said. I think this city has a great track record of figuring out things really fast. We just have to be realistic, she said. I think this city has a great track record. Oh, I'm sorry. Reading over again. Ralston said a moratorium would put Springfield in a competitive disadvantage from a business standpoint if nearby communities allow them to open. I want to be open for business, Ralston said, adding that it appeared the city was looking for reasons to block dispensaries rather than figure out ways to allow them. Other councilors said it's wise to call a timeout so the city can figure out how to regulate the dispensaries. To make sense to take the extra time and do it right, Councilor Sean McGordon said. Councilor Marilee Woodrow said she is concerned about rolling out the welcome mat for a new industry without having rules in place. She added she would be open to allowing dispensaries if the proper regulations are in place, but added that the May 1 deadline poses a challenge. All the councilors agreed that it is important to hold a public hearing, currently slated for April 7th, as they weigh a decision. Lundberg's comments struck a chord with B. Young, who opened the Wicket Weedery dispensary on Main Street. She said she became interested in the medical use of marijuana after her grandmother was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor years ago. People think it's about the money. It's very important for us to reach people who are sick, she said.
That's interesting because I looked on Leafly and that's the dispensary that charges the highest prices.
Wow, interesting. Interesting.
So that's interesting that she says people think it's about the money.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, that's where you hear this stuff in this show right here, folks, is where you hear the truth and what's going on, what's really going on. Excellent. Thanks for the input. Local dispensary owners, growers, and others have formed two local trade groups, the Lane County and Springfield Cannabis Industry Associations, to protect the fledgling industry's interests. The Oregon Health Authority on Friday approved the first 8 dispensaries, including one in Eugene, and already had adopted rules for their operation. Others continue to review applications. Officials continue to review applications. 6 dispensaries have applied to open in Springfield. This temporary moratorium would give cities more time to discuss regulations for dispensaries and track their performance in communities that don't adopt a moratorium. State lawmakers will convene a work group to monitor the dispensaries and recommend possible changes to the law during the 2015 legislative session. Meanwhile, supporters for the recreational use of marijuana are gathering signatures to qualify one or more measures to the November 2014 statewide ballot. And that's very true. We've been talking about that too.
That's interesting that one of them in Eugene already got their license. I wonder which one got it.
The greener side, I think.
I don't know. The last time I talked to Joseph, well, I didn't ask Joseph, I guess. I asked whoever was on the phone, and they weren't sure whether they got the license yet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm waiting for the grand opening. They said they would have one, so you imagine.
Yeah, I asked about that, and they weren't sure, but Joseph was busy, so I didn't get to ask him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So we got it. So anyway, it's really important for people to show up and fight for the patient's rights, because I like to say that your rights are like a muscle. If you don't use them, you're going to lose them. So that's why we got to fight. And then another article came out on the 29th, Register Guard. Cities struggle, this is by Joseph Woolington. Cities struggle over pot retailers. More local governments could seek temporary bans on medical marijuana dispensaries. See, it talks about Lane County. So far, 2 cities, Florence and Junction City, have passed moratoriums that will prevent people from opening up pot shops within the 2 cities for 1 year. See, Cresswell will take an issue on Monday we talked about. Cresswell Mayor David Stram said a moratorium would give the council more time to get comments from residents and to consider what effects a dispensary in Cresswell could have. Stram said he is not aware of any dispensaries in Cresswell, but said there has been interest in opening one somewhere on Oregon Avenue, which runs through the city center. Cities have until May 1st to temporarily ban medical marijuana dispensaries. I think we've been through that.
If Cresswell passed one, that wouldn't be too bad because Eugene's close, and if Cottage Grove's moratorium fails, they have one dispensary opening up there too.
Here we go. As of Friday, the Oregon Health Authority, which will oversee the dispensaries, had approved 22 dispensaries in the state, including 5 in Eugene.
Oh, that's a good update.
So far, Emerald Medicine, the greener side. Okay, Emerald Medicine. I can't read out the whole address. The greener side, Oregon Medigreen. And the Herbal Center, and the Oregon Medical Alternatives, and Wicked.
I'm kind of
Wicked
surprised
Readery.
that Oregon Medigreen made it. They must have shaped up.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, that's 5 in Eugene at this point. So that's anyway.
Well, that's good news that all the good ones made it.
Yeah, that's great. So there is access for medicine for patients, and that's what it's all about. So excellent. That's well, very good. So that's what we have news. We're out, and we'll see you next week.